into this YouTube video, we are going to look at a question, a really good, fun question that I've come across in kind of multiple choice style questions, and it was related to externalities, so I thought we're on this topic, and so we can have a go maybe at trying it out. And here's a kind of the version of the question. So what is the total value of the negative externalities at the free market equilibrium? So typically this question will have like some somewhat misleading possibilities that are going to maybe throw you off. So it typically will have no indication as to like what the free market equilibrium, it won't tell you. So it might have like a random Q1 and a random Q2, and it's your job to figure out which one's the free market equilibrium. It will probably also have some areas, maybe some areas that have been labeled A, B, C, D. I don't know, let's go for E also. So you know you have some irrelevant information. That's one thing that makes this tricky. The second thing that makes this tricky, this is asking about the total value of the externalities. And I'm guessing up until this point, you haven't done too much of that practice. So to calculate this, I suggest that we really define what is a negative externality first. So this negative externality is just really the third party impacts, right? Third parties are being harmed. They're unhappy. Now we know that can come from the consumption or the production. If you've seen the videos before, remember that the externality that each unit has is seen as the gap either between your supply curves or between your demand curves. So this would be if it's a consumption externality, and this one if it's a production externality. Now they're being really vague because they haven't actually told you, is it consumption or is it production? But you know from this graph that there's no split in the consumption, so then you know that, okay, it's not going to be a consumption externality. And you know from what we've discussed that the externality that each unit has is this bit here. And for those who have been watching the videos, this is what we call the MEC. The MEC, marginal external cost, is the cost to third parties of making another good. The key word with what you've learned so far about externalities is it only takes into account that unit, that other good. It doesn't take into account the total externalities. But you have some key information. You know you can find the externality that one particular unit had by looking at the gap between that. So if this gap is 10, you know that the externality for this Q third unit had an externality of 10. But this question wants you to work out what's the total externalities for all the units produced up until the free market equilibrium. You know how to work out the free market equilibrium. QFM is simply where MPC equals MPB. This is another trick to the question. This question might not tell you so clearly where MPC is, where MPB is, to make it a little bit trickier. But you can tell from this which one it is. So a firm will only ever supply according to the costs that they have to pay. Why would a firm pay more costs? And why would a firm get away with paying less? They can't. They have to pay their marginal private costs. And they will supply on that. So we can infer that the supply curve will reflect the marginal private costs of the firm. Take a look at my other videos to take a deep dive into that one. So we know the MPC curve is that one. And again, we know that households will demand according to how it benefits them. So they're being kind of sneaky, but we know the free market equilibrium will be where supply equals demand, or where MPC equals MPB. and that's going to be Q2 in this case. So to work out the total externality at Q2, we need to work out how much of an externality all of the units produced up until Q2 have made. So if Q2 is 100, we need to know how much externality is the first unit made, the second one, the third one, all the way up to 100, and add up all the externalities. The good news is we already know what the externality is for each of these units. This particular quantity had an externality of that much. The next quantity had an externality of this much. Next one had an externality of this much, and so on. All of these units would have had, up until Q2, all of these externalities. Meaning that now we have the answer to the question. It wouldn't really look like a whole bunch of lines if you imagine that this is lots and lots of quantities. Those lines would kind of like blur into like an area. So the total value of all the externalities has been the sum of all the marginal externalities which have been the sum of MSC minus MPC as MEC minus MPC, and sum of all the externalities for everything between the origin and Q2, which is going to be really exciting. I think that's a B plus C plus D, and that's the answer. Hope you enjoyed that video. I'll be sharing a couple of these other ones. I find them really tricky, and let me know if you have any other questions. Happy to address this. Thank you so much. Bye.